Operating system plays a very important role in controlling and coordinating all the activities which is happening in the system. So how? Imagine I have 5 lines of source code. So I'm dealing this with the help of the compiler. What exactly operating system is all about? Role of an operating system in running a program. What exactly throughput is all about? The number of jobs completed by time taken is what I will call it as a throughput. What is this object code that you are speaking with respect? Object code is nothing but machine code. Hello everyone, I welcome all of you to the second session on Inside Program Execution. So hope you have seen the session number 1 and what is that we have done in the session number 1. Suppose if you have not, let me give you a small recap what exactly I have discussed in the last session. My dear students, I have discussed in detail about how exactly the compilation process is happening. What is the different steps that we have in the compilation process? And also I have discussed what exactly compiler is all about, and also I have discussed what exactly interpreter is all about. So how exactly both of them are working and how exactly it is behaving is what we have discussed in the previous session. All right, so then what is that I have in this session? So in this session I will be discussing about again interpretation process in detail, and I will also discuss what exactly the compiler is all about and how it is different from interpreter. In detail I'm going to discuss in this session. Along with that, I will also discuss the role of an operating system in running a program. What exactly operating system is all about and what is the role of running a program is what I'm going to discuss in this session. And also, I will discuss how exactly it is managing the process. So that's what a very important thing that we are going to discuss in this session. Along with that, execution of instructions of a ready process is what we are trying to discuss. All right, so let's get into the session without wasting much of your time. All right, what is the first thing that I have? The interpretation process. So I don't have to explain all these things. This diagram speaks very clearly. What is that? So please listen to me carefully. Imagine this is the source code that I have. Imagine I have 5 lines of source code. So I'm dealing this with the help of the compiler. I'm dealing with the help of the compiler. What exactly is happening? What is the compiler is doing? Compiler is compiling the entire 5-line code in one go. So that's what we are trying to do here. So entire 5 lines is coming to the compiler, then compiler is compiling the whole code in one go. So that's what we need to understand here. The whole code is getting converted into executable file in one go. That is what you need to understand, and the entire thing is going to get compiled. So I have 5 lines. How many lines I had? I had 5 lines. That is the major thing that you need to observe here. So fine. So you understood what exactly the compilation is all about. But now you need to understand what is interpreter. So fine. I have the source code. How many lines I have? I have 5 lines. So what exactly the interpreter is doing? So interpreter is doing one line at a time. Say for example, first time it is executing the first line. So what is the source code that I have? So first code, that first line is getting executed. So once I'm done with the first line, if I don't have any errors in the first line, all right, so then it is going to the second line. After that, it is going to the third and fourth and fifth. That's what you need to observe here. So compiler will execute all the code, whole program in one go. But when it comes to interpreter, it executes line by line. That's what you need to remember here. So fine. So I have brought a major differences between the interpreter and compiler to all of you now. Let's discuss this in detail one by one. What is the first one that I have? So I have the input. So how exactly input is getting different? No, it's getting different in the compiler as well as in the interpreter. Let's have a check. So a compiler takes the entire program as its input. I repeat, Compiler takes the entire program as its input. But when it comes to interpreter, it is not like that. Just now we discussed it will take only one line at a time. So that is the first thing that you need to remember with respect to the input. In the same way, output, it generates the intermediate object code from the whole program. Whatever the complete source code that I have, so that complete source code will be converted into the object code in one go. But it will not happen like that in the interpreter. It does not generally generate any intermediate object code when it comes to interpreter. So that's what you need to understand. So what is this object code that you are speaking with respect? Object code is nothing but machine code. All right, so that's what you need to remember. But though I have the object code, I spoke about this in the previous class. You all will be knowing about it. So though it is in the machine code, I'll not be able to, I cannot say that is the final stage. I can execute, I can run, because I have to link. I have to undergo the process of linking, and I have to load it to the memory. All those processes are not yet done. That's not ready completely. So that's what you need to remember. Linking is not yet happened to the object code. Of course, it is a machine code. I can also call this object code as a machine code, but it is not completely ready for the execution. All right, that's what you need to remember. When it comes to compiler, it generates the object code, but interpreter does not. So fine. Memory, with respect to memory, how exactly compiler is behaving. So please check here. Compiler requires more memory. Why? Because it is loading the complete program. But when it comes to interpreter, it does not require much memory because it is loading only one line at a time. That's what you need to remember. So fine, I have errors. So please check how exactly it is different. So displays the list of error of entire program. So that's very impressive. Whatever the errors that I have in the entire program, everything will be listed here. But when it comes to interpreter, you have to observe here what exactly it performs. So interpreter displays the error of the single instruction because it is executing only one instruction at a time. So it can obviously display the error whatever I have in that single instruction. So that is the major thing that we need to notice here. So fine, always required. Do I need the compiler always? So please check. No, once the role of the compiler is over, I don't need the compiler again. But when it comes to interpreter, it is quite opposite to that. I need the interpreter because I have to execute it one line by line. So that is the major difference. And then workload. Please observe, compilation once done stays away. Recompilation not required if the code needs to run again. So that's what you need to remember. The same executable file can be rerun without the compiler, but it is quite different here. Interpretation is required each time. Interpretation is required each time you have to run the code, and the interpreter does not create any executables. That's what you need to remember. Hence, it is required every time. What is the last point is speaking? So you need to understand the last point very clearly. I'm using the compiler. Compiler is generating what? Compiler is generating the object code. Compiler is generating the object code. Once the object code is with me, okay, if I want to do any modifications to my program, all right, so I can rerun. I don't have to have the compiler with me. Say for example, I have the object code. If I want to rerun it, I don't require the compiler. You need to understand the meaning of this last statement. What exactly is this? When I have to rerun my program with respect to the compiler, I do not require the compiler again. But when it is with the interpreter, it is not like that. Every time when I run, so I need the interpreter because compiler is generating the file which can be run without the compiler. Once it is done, once the compilation is done, I can use that file and I can run a number of times. I can rerun the file without the dependency of compiler. But when it comes to interpreter, it is not like that. Every time when I run the code, so I need the interpreter because interpreter does not interpreter does not generate any code which can be run without the interpreter. That is what you need to remember. That is the major difference that you need to notice at this point of time. So fine, hope you got the clear idea about the compiler and interpreter. So moving on to the next one, a role of an operating system. What exactly operating system is all about? Role of an operating system in running a program is what I'm trying to discuss with all of you now. So before that, let me give you a brief introduction about what exactly operating system is all about. It's a very beautiful topic that all of us should know. Operating system is a system software which acts as an interface between the application program and the hardware and user. So it coordinates between the hardware, application program, and also with the user. So operating system plays a very, very important role in controlling and coordinating all the activities which is happening in the system. So how control unit is responsible to control and coordinate all the activities, right? You might be wondering, if you come to know how exactly operating system is functioning, most of the things are done by the operating system. Let's understand this in detail one by one. All right, let's understand the functions of operating system. Before understanding the function of operating system, it's very important that we need to understand something. So we have something called throughput. What exactly throughput is all about? The number of tasks executed by the given time is what I will call it as a throughput. Before I get into the concept of functions of operating system, let me explain a very important topic, that is throughput. What exactly throughput is all about? The number of jobs completed by time taken is what I will call it as a throughput. So please understand, the number of throughput is all about the number of jobs completed by time taken. All right, so that's what I will call it as a throughput. So with the help of this throughput, I will be calculating the efficiency of the system. So fine, it's time for all of us to understand the different functions of operating system. The first function that I have is process management. The second one that I have is process scheduling. The third one that I have is memory management and input-output management. Some of the authors says that we have something called process management, device management, input-output management, and memory management. So we don't consider this process scheduling as one of the function according to some of the authors. But in this textbook, whatever we are referring in the Sumit Arora, they consider process scheduling as one of the function. So let me just give you a brief knowledge about what exactly process management is all about, what exactly process scheduling is all about, what is memory management, and what is input-output management, though it is not there in your syllabus and textbook. My dear students, we have something called process management. So what exactly process and what is program? So let me give you the clarity on this before I come to this process management. See, you people will be typing the program, right? So the source code is what we call it as a program. So the program is in the passive state. If you execute that, so it will go to the active state. So when the program is in the active state, that is what I will call it as a process. That's what I will call it as a process. The program under execution is what I will call it as a process. That's what you need to remember. So fine, I got to know what is process now. How do I execute it? If a process wants to execute, so first of all, it should go to the scheduler. The scheduler will schedule the process. When it is scheduling, it will allocate some memory. So how exactly this memory is being utilized by this process? So the memory is getting divided into 4 different parts. In the first part, so it is going to store the program code, the compiled code, which consists of all the functions and the variables, especially global variables. When we allocate a memory for this process, majorly, so it has got 4 different parts of the memory. How exactly this process is utilizing the memory? So first part of the memory is allocated for the function code, the compile code, whatever I have, all those things will be stored in the first part. And then next, I will be storing the global variable. And in the third part, I will be storing all the local variables and the addresses. In the fourth part, I will be treating that as a heap memory. The third part, I would like to say that as a stack because I will be storing all my variables there. But when it comes to the fourth part of the memory, I will call that as a heap. What is that heap? So that is an extra memory that I have. If I want dynamically, if I need any extra memory, I will be utilizing from there. Please understand. So when I allocate the memory for the process, so it has got 4 parts. Okay, it has got 4 parts. In the first part, I will be storing the function code. In the first part, I will be storing the function code. The second part, I will be storing the global variables. The third part, okay, let me write the third part here. All the variables, whatever I have, especially local variables. So this part, I will call it as a stack. This part, I will call it as a stack. All those local variables, I will be storing here. And then this part, I will be calling it as a heap. So this heap is a free memory. Whenever I need an extra memory during the execution time, I will be taking it from here. So that's what you need to understand when it comes to the process management. So according to the textbook, you have only this much, but you need to understand some more information with respect to the process management. What exactly process management is all about? So process management handles the creation of process. And also, it manages how exactly the memory should be allocated for the memory. Let's learn something more about process management. What exactly process management is all about? I think I have discussed enough things about already, but let us understand something more about process management. So guys, please listen carefully. Everything in and out of the process will be taken care from the process management. To assign a job, to schedule a job, to delete the jobs which is already done. Everything with respect to the process is done by the process management. But according to the author, I have something called process scheduling. In some of the books, which is mainly dedicated to the operating system, they speak when it comes to the process scheduling. We have 3 different types of scheduling. So don't worry, this is not there in your textbook, but still I would like to share this information with you. We have 3 different types of scheduling algorithms. One is short-term scheduling, another one is medium-term scheduling, another one is long-term scheduling. Whenever I want to schedule any process, so I might schedule based on any one of the algorithm. So that is taken care with the process scheduling. Whenever I'm scheduling any process, I might schedule based on any one among these 3. That's what you need to remember about process scheduling. All right. The next one that I have is memory management. What exactly memory management is all about? So I have the memory. How best I'm utilizing it is what the memory management is all about. So if I want to allocate the memory for each and every process, it is taken care by memory management. In the meanwhile, if I want to deallocate the allocated memory, so again, that job is done by the memory management. And also, say for example, I have the chunks of memory. Say for example, I have some bits and pieces of memory is spread across the different places. So all those things will be collected into one place. So who will be doing that? Again, that is also done by the memory management. If I have any input output operations, so all those things will be controlled and coordinated by input output management. That's what you need to remember about the 4 different functionalities of operating system. So fine, the next important thing that you need to remember with respect to the process management. I think I've already spoken about the process management very clearly. So I will be speaking about this, in the coming slide. This is very important with respect to your exam point of view. So what exactly is this? So this is what I will call it as a process life cycle. Okay, this is what we call it as a process life cycle. This comes under the process management. All right. So what exactly the life cycle is all about? Say for example, so this is the first state of the process. What exactly the first state of the process? So the first state of the process is start. So this is the initial state of the process. So this is the beginning of the process. All right. So fine, I have initiated the process. I have assigned the job to the process. So in this state. So after that, it moves to the second state, that is ready state. When it comes to the ready state, the process is done with all the requirements and it is ready for the execution. It has taken all the input output operations. Whatever it is required for the execution of that particular process, everything it has got. Say for example, I need to jump from the third floor. Okay, if I want to jump from the third floor, I need to equip with a lot of things, that is parachute. All right, so that is what I will call that. Parachute is what I will call it as a input output operation. So if I want to execute any process, I need to have some input output operations. So if I want to go to the ready state, I should have all the necessary input output operations. So if I am done with all the input output operations, then I will be in the ready state. So in this ready state, I'm just waiting for the CPU. I'm just waiting for the CPU. So fine, you are in the ready state. So after that, you will move to the running state. What happens in the running state? So the process is getting allotted to the CPU. CPU is executing that process. CPU is executing that process. Say for example, when the CPU is executing, so it requires some input output operations to complete that execution. Suppose if that input output operation is required, what happens? It will send it back to the wait state. It will send it back to the wait state. So here what happens? Again in the wait state, it will collect all the input output operations and then again it will come back to the ready state and then again it is waiting for the CPU. Now it will come back to the CPU. CPU will execute that process completely and then it will move to the terminate state. The completion of the execution of that particular process ends in the terminate state. It ends in the terminate states. That's what you need to remember about the life cycle of a process. So this is very important that we need to understand. The next important thing is all about PCB. What exactly PCB is all about? Process control block is what I will call it as a PCB. It's one of the data structure that we have where we store the complete information about each and every process. The informations are like, we have a process ID. Okay. Why do we have process ID? Why do we have process ID? PID. So to uniquely, I have millions of processes which will be running in my system. How do I identify the process uniquely? So with the help of PID, I will be able to identify the process uniquely. In the same way, I have process state. In the same way, I have process state. A lot of process will be there and I have these many states. I need to mention in which state this process is there currently. So in this field, I can mention that. And then I have process privileges. So for that process, what is the rights that I have given? So I will be mentioning that in the process privileges. So that's what you need to remember. So along with that, the next one is CPU registers. What exactly I will have in the CPU registers? In that CPU register, I will have information about which CPU register I can use for this particular process execution. So that is one more thing that you need to remember. And the next one that I have is program counter. What exactly program counter? In short, I will be calling it as a PC. So program counter contains what is the next instruction to be executed. So right now the process is executing this. After this, what it should execute. So that is what the program counter contains. And also along with that, lastly, please remember accounting information. Accounting information in the sense how much resource is allocated to that particular process. That information will be stored in the accounting information. So this is what I will be storing in the PCB, program control block. PCB is a data structure. So I will be storing the complete information about the process. This is what you need to remember with respect to the PCB. So fine. So this is what you need to remember with respect to the PCB. By this, I have come to an end of this session. Thank you very much. Hope you like the information. If you have learned something, please don't forget to click on the like button. Thank you, everybody.